Welcome back to the Money Medicine Podcast, where today we're going to be discussing strategies to grow your business, tools to accelerate that growth, and how top medical practices like yourself are executing and winning. All right, we are back. I believe this is episode 13 of the podcast, and today we are going to be talking about some doctor detailing or just some business relationship building inside of your practice, regardless of if you have a pharmacy, if you have a clinic, if you have a practice of any type. This will be a useful episode for you because Logan's done some doctor detailing in his days. We're going to get into some lessons he learned along the way, both from personal experience and from the insights of some people that he's been able to spend some time around and learn from. And so if you are coming out of summer, maybe business has been a little bit slower, people haven't been as sick, your practice hasn't been flying around with a bunch of appointments, you're going into the fall, you're trying to have a strong finish to Q3, Q4. This episode is going to help you create more relationships, create more opportunities for your business, and Logan's going to help us break that down. So, Logan, I'm not going to pretend that I have the experience that you have, doing all the doctor detailing and relationship building that you've done. But similar to if I was starting that process today, right, I'm sure how I would go about it and do it would be a little bit different than you would as maybe a little bit of a seasoned veteran, right? So to the person that maybe is just starting, what did it feel like maybe walking into your first office and trying to create your first relationship or doing your first doctor detailing, right? Like, what were the emotions going through your head in those initial weeks?
I mean, I was definitely extremely nervous, only because I didn't know what to expect or what to say or how to present myself. It was really kind of this unnerving anxiety process. Calling up, setting it up, seeing if they wanted lunch, or then once they said, yeah, we want lunch, I was like, I don't even know what to get you for lunch. So what do you guys like? And then you have to try to, all these different things that you don't really think about. All of a sudden you just get dropped and you're like, I've never done this.
So it's like you want the opportunity, but then when the opportunity comes, you're like, what do I do? Like it's like scramble. You're excited, but you don't know what to do next. And so I'm sure just like first step, how do I get the appointment? Second step, how do I, maybe have a successful, appointment or visit? So what was hardest for you? Like getting the initial appointment, picking up the phone to even try to get your first appointment? Were you visiting in person? Like what did the initial doctor detailing look like maybe for you?
So my first one was an in-person appointment, and I had calling's, I think, the easy part. It's actually getting past the guardians per se to actually talk to the person that you want to either see, or even maybe the practice manager who schedules, the lunch and learns or things of that nature. And so I probably called at least 15 different offices. And a lot of times they're like, no, we don't, they don't see people outside, or they always thought I was like a big pharma rep. I was like, no, I'm a pharmacy. I'm not bringing any drugs in to, have your physicians use. I'm just coming to meet you. Cause at this time I was still doing primarily just retail pharmacy. So that's definitely one of the biggest hurdles, is trying to figure it out. Now there is a program that I just learned about called RX Advantage or RX Vantage that you can actually set up appointments online. That's kind of cool. So not that I'm sponsored or anything by them, but I just thought it was cool that you could sign up for it. You can schedule times if you just want to do a drop off or pay for a lunch or whatever. You can do that now. So that's kind of something I wish I would have known ahead of time, because that can save a lot of phone calls, or like the anxiety of waiting on hold and being like, here goes 30 minutes of my time talking to no one.
Yeah. Wait, have you tried it? Like, does it work, or is it just something you heard about?
It does work. So we have a drop off that we're doing. So I didn't want to spend any time at the office because I don't see it being overly fruitful. as far as who I'm going to talk to. Um, but we're going to be able to drop off our materials to those individuals. And if they have questions there, we can answer it. So that works out well for me versus, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, than buying a lunch for the whole office or things of that nature. So, um, but it's really about, that initial meeting with the physician, and they don't always go great.
Yeah. So take me back a little bit. You call 15 or so, um, up, you know, different practices, different offices, etc. And did you get, I guess your first breakthrough, was it a lunch and learn? Was it just a drop off? Like what finally worked?
So my first one was a lunch and learn, which I think they tend to like better because they're getting something out of it already.
Fred?
But I will say, I think lunch and learns are a complete waste of money, only because they don't care that it was you that brought them food. They just like that they don't have to buy a lunch or bring a lunch or things of that nature. So my 2 cents, if you can avoid it, don't bring lunch.
It
If you want to
does.
bring something small like cookies, but don't pay $13 a box for some sort of lunch for people who don't even care who you are.
Yeah, I think that is fair. Just from an outsider's perspective, if someone was interested in hearing what you had to say, they'd probably do it without lunch. So it does kind of seem like if lunch is the only thing that gets them across the finish line, their intention is probably not there. It's almost like um, some people would probably get excited about like having a consultation or have like a sales appointment on their calendar, right? Like pick any business, you have a consultation, you have like a sales appointment. But if you knew leading up to that appointment that like the person wasn't that interested, like do you really even does it really matter that you like got an appointment or that you got a consultation or you got a sales call? Like it doesn't, because the context of the appointment does matter too. And so it does seem like, just from an outsider's perspective, that a lunch and learn could be very easily used by the business to just get their office lunch, earn some brownie points for them and their staff, as the business owner that set up the lunch and learn, but in reality doesn't mean that they were interested in any way, shape, or form from the
Right.
beginning.
Right. Yeah. So that was a probably a mistake early on.
So do you think
Uh,
lunch and learns help with just like more volume, but not necessarily more quality? Would that be like, sure,
I
you'll
would.
get more
Oh,
lunch and learns, but doesn't mean you'll get more business?
I agree, 100%. So my first one, lunch and learn, pretty good showing. I had out of that office, I had about 24 people show up. And it was a mix between physicians, nurses, MAs, because when you bring a lunch, if they have a big enough space, everyone will kind of just sit in there and listen to what you have to say, which is nice because you can just like group sessions or things of that nature. You can get all the information across at once, but also you have a higher likelihood of some of those people not caring. Um, and so after I talked to those physicians, and granted, the whole time I'm like, first my PowerPoint wouldn't load up, and then all these other issues, the joys of technology, right?
When it rains, it pours.
Oh gosh, yes. And then so I just started without it, and then they got it working. And I had probably about two physicians that were semi interested in what I had to say. Um, I brought all my materials in and, information that they could have afterwards that they could open up. So went through my spiel, had a couple questions and then everyone left. And it was just like, I thought people would want to like come up and chat or like have more further discussions. And it was just kind of like, yep, thanks for food. We appreciate your 15-minute talk. All right, we're going back to work. And it was
Yeah.
just like, it was like a balloon pop. Like you just felt deflated afterwards, at least for my first one.
You felt
Uh,
used a little bit?
yeah, I was just like, I can't believe that they wanted to, they were okay with me coming in for like lunch, and I thought they'd be excited and really interested in the topic. And then it just kind of was just like, ouch.
Yeah. So how many lunch and learns did you do like that? Maybe, and I'm sure you felt it immediately, like maybe this isn't the right way to do it. But how often would you say that you did that, or when was that first realization like I got to do something different?
So it took me a while, honestly. And that's because after that, I didn't do another lunch and learn. Um, if anything, I would bring like a coffee. I'd bring something small to whoever I was talking to. Like, hey, oh, by the way, I'm going to Starbucks or something. Would you like me to bring, or do you want something along with that? Even if I wasn't really going there, like, I'd still offer it to make it at least seem like I genuinely care. Not that I don't genuinely care, but like, you're still offering them something.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went back to a lunch and learn probably it's probably like 8 months later. Another time just bombed. Like people just showed up, grabbed food, and left. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. So personally, I don't like them just because I feel used and abused. But that's not to say that it's not the best way, to get volume at least.
Yeah, it depends what you value, right? Do you value appointments and showing face, or do you value maybe being efficient with your dollars, and your time and your opportunity? So let's make this then about maybe to the person that's not just trying to get the most amount of volume, most amount of appointments, but maybe to the person that is a little time strapped, maybe even is a little cash strapped. They're only going to be able to select so many battles throughout the week, maybe per se, and they're trying to make the most of that effort, right? So that's maybe what it looked like in the beginning. What works best, or maybe what were the lessons that you've learned along the way? What were some of the mistakes that, like, maybe not necessarily giving away what you do, or that there's necessarily a best way, but just some things that, regardless of like your tactics, I wouldn't do these things.
Yeah, so one of the things I would make sure that you don't do is misrepresent information. So a lot of times you get so excited to come in there and tell them what you do. So if you're a compounding pharmacy, you're super excited to talk to them about methylene blue or semaglutide. And you kind of say like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Like this is going to work for all your patients. Everyone needs to be on this. Well, that's not necessarily true. Or you're promising, hey, they're going to lose 40 pounds guaranteed. It's not true. And so you'll come off real salesy, and a lot of doctors don't like that just because they have pharma reps and, all these other reps that come in trying to sell them something. They don't want to hear it from you. So that's definitely something I would try to avoid.
So you're saying in the early days, you were going and you were more so pitching yourself a little bit, maybe then asking questions, building a relationship, and just getting to know them. Maybe a little so, a little too excited, or just green, if you will, just new in the process, that you went in and you were just pitching, more or less.
Right. Yeah, my mistake was I was pitching more than I was actually just teaching or finding a problem, their actual problem. And
So
that's some
maybe of the 15 minutes you got to speak, did you speak for all 15 minutes, or was there much dialogue in the beginning?
That was just pretty much me just rambling on. That was, and as you'll learn, like it's hard for me to stop talking sometimes. So it was just like me just running my mouth. And so not something that you'll want to do. I would definitely do a little bit more research on the back end before you meet with this, a provider or provider group. See if you can figure out ahead of time what some of their problems are, and then make sure that you at least have some sort of solution in the back pocket when you meet with them.
Gotcha. Okay, so first mistake, talking the entire time, not asking questions, not getting to know them, and just, almost like I don't know if you've seen those memes before where it's like the guy and the girl at the bar and he's just like deep in her ear. She's clearly not interested, just like shouting. Um, that's popping the meme. But anyways, maybe that's in some way, shape, or form what it looked like when you get in front of the room and you just ramble or just speak for 15 minutes and try to sell yourself. So that being a common mistake in sales in general, what would be takeaway number two, takeaway number three of I don't do this anymore. Here's why.
One of the things is not bringing enough evidence for what you're talking about or what the goal of the meeting is. So, I know for my first meeting, I brought a bunch of like generalized information about the pharmacy, but I didn't have as many like clinical studies in there about certain items that I wanted to talk about. And so at the end, I had those two providers who were fairly interested. They wanted more information, and I was like, "Oh, I don't have it on me. I left it. It's back at my office. I can send it to you afterwards," which is a great reply because at least I'm still answering it. But they would have valued it much more if I would have given them that information then. And so making sure that you have all the information ready and available that you can give them right away is pretty crucial.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna throw a wild card kind of question on this, and maybe it's a little bit of psychology, but like the example that you just gave to me sounds like what you're kind of trying to say, or what you are saying, is that if you can become more of a resource of great information, then they'll, trust you and maybe just come back to you in the future for, whether it's related to that subject or other subjects. Where I'm going with that is, part of me wonders if, and there's no data on this, but I'd be interested in your opinion, if a health expert, like a pharmacist, like a doctor, like a provider, you know, they're perceived as typically, like, you ask them a question, they're going to know it, like health related, right? Imagine going to, financial, analyst, or, financial expert, and asking them about, what is a stock? And like, they don't know the answer, right? That wouldn't happen, right? So I think sometimes, maybe if I'm wrong, but there's probably a perception that they should know the answer. And so I would imagine they would like having a pharmacist, or, whether it's a pharmacist or not, but someone that they can go to for